Welcome everybody to the Meshery development meeting. Today is 11th of August and we have a packed schedule today. A lot of demos, so sit back and bring in those critics inside you. Uh, so the first couple of items is related to Meshery UI. So Nitish, would you like to get?
Yep. So actually, regarding the first item, sometimes we are actually having issues with deployment of meshing. So me and Dhruv were actually discussing about this, that whether it would actually be it would actually benefit us if we have a separate functionality in the UI to deploy that manually. That is sort of something that we thought we could discuss it in the community meeting. I mean, discuss it in this meeting. So yeah, we are. I'm actually waiting for here to get your opinion on this, on whether we should proceed in this or whatever.
Yeah, so like to give you a brief detail on what is happening. Basically, when you connect to Meshery, there are three processes happening underneath. First is you deploy Meshery operator, which indeed also starts a NAT server. Then the second thing which happens is the Meshery server tries to connect to that net server as a client. And the third thing which happens is after it is successfully able to connect to that particular NAT server, it will deploy Meshery. Now, in any of these three different steps, if one of that fails, then usually the user is crippled with only Meshery operator deployed and not meshing deployed or not connected to the broker, but the operator is running. And we consider if Meshery operator is deployed, then we consider that operator is deployed and everything is working. So to give them specific use cases for them to connect this. So that was what we had in mind. We could separate them into three stages, and we can allow them to allow them to redo each stage if they like. If for some reason it didn't work, like for many of you, the meshing might not be deployed because you weren't able to connect to the broker while in the time limit itself. So with this, you would be able to like do the last step automatically. You're doing the whole thing once. Make sense? Or doesn't make sense?
It's painful when you don't get feedback. So this is a proposal, right?
Yeah, you can say that it's enhancement in my eyes, but yeah, for your eyes, it might be a proposal.
Yeah, well, I mean, a proposed enhancement is what I mean. Like,
yeah, sort of.
Yep, there is additional control needed over MeshSync. MeshSync is the linchpin to the rest of Meshery's functionality working. And so between kube config and having it prepared and accessible to Meshery server, and between that and MeshSync, these are the two foremost areas where people using Meshery stumble into pitfalls. And so there is some thought that is needed, and it needs to be written down and also diagrammed. It could just be a simple wireframe for a couple of utilities that Dhruv and I think Nitish are proposing that for people to use. And it's there's a couple of scenarios. There's a scenario in which for every for every connection that Meshery has to a component, whether it's its own component or an externally managed component, every time you get a connection established, Meshery will show you a chip in the UI. And if anyone has it up, we could take a look just as we discuss this, because we might be able to arrive at at least one or two specific action items here. Part of the reason I think that this might need to be written down is there have been some enhancements to empowering users with additional tests and like health checks that they can run against MeshSync specifically, which is great. I don't know that, even for my part, I'm not entirely clear on what all health checks we have available to us, so that we can design a user experience that is accommodating, that is specific. So is Meghana on the call? No, but Meghana had recently delivered a new chip. By the way, in Material UI, for all of you who are unfamiliar with Meshery's UI, it uses Material UI, among other things. And that little, where you see Docker Desktop for Kubernetes, Material UI refers to that component as a chip. We use chips to denote a connection between Meshery server and any other component. Kubernetes is a system that Meshery is aware of and connects to, but isn't directly responsible for the entire lifecycle management of Kubernetes. And yet, since it has a connection, since Meshery server has a connection to it, it's represented as a chip. Meshery server is responsible for the full lifecycle management of Meshery operator and MeshSync, the other two chips. Now, to date, we've provided a fairly common user experience for users. When they go to click on a chip, there's a quick ad hoc connectivity test that is invoked. That's consistent across all of the chips except for the operator and MeshSync. They do not have a quick connectivity test. They have a more robust test happening, and it creates which is good, but also negative to the extent that it creates a discrepancy in user experience. And if we've learned anything in our meetings, it's that a lack of consistency is poor user experience. So we want to train the users to expect a particular thing when they click or right click or whatever they're doing. And to date, there's a quick, can you click on the Kubernetes chip, please? Bink. Can you hit it 10 times as fast? Bink, 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 bink. If we only had that sound that goes with it, that would be great. Just a little bink, bink, bink. But anyway, that's nice. It feels, to me, I don't know how everyone else feels. It feels great. Like, okay, yeah, it's there. Is it there? It's there. Ah, good. Like, and it's fast, it's responsive. It's just the lightest of tests. Just basically when you click that button, there are like 3 things that are affirmed. One is that Meshery server, wherever it is deployed, has network connectivity to Kubernetes. Good, if you get a positive response, right? Second thing that's confirmed is that Meshery server has, or that Kube API is in fact responding and is up and available and accessible to Meshery. It is responding to Meshery, so it's awake. Good. Third thing is that Meshery server has the right credentials to be able to authenticate to that API, make a quick test, and come back. So that's like 3 things in like a second and a half, 2 seconds. It's really great. For the operator, that's not the same experience. There needs to be a written proposal about what checks we have in place, what ad hoc connectivity tests we have for the operator, what one we have for MeshSync, what actually is performed in those 2 ad hoc connectivity tests, and then a list of other operations that are possible, like deprovisioning the operator, wiping MeshSync database, invoking a resync of just MeshSync. Should we allow the user to directly control the lifecycle of MeshSync, like to delete MeshSync and reinstall? Well, I don't know that we should. That's what the operator is for. That is the purpose of the operator itself. Okay, but there are other checks as well, like, well, great, MeshSync is there, but is data actively flowing? Are information updates actively being pumped in from MeshSync through? Like, there's a number of checkpoints in there. And so, yeah, I think that is a great proposal. And it's so great actually, and mesh sync is so important that I think that mesh sync icon should also be permanently placed up in the nav bar, such that it is always understood whether or not that thing is connected or not. And if it's disconnected, the entire UI needs to show a degraded state. There needs to be a warning flag. Like, that's fairly prominent. It's like, you can still use Meshery. As a matter of fact, let me just take a quick look at the attendees. You know, there's an engineer from Intel who's using Meshery actively, and they're not using Meshery as it's connected to Kubernetes. Like, that's not functionality that they're concerned with, that they care about. So it's totally valid to not have to use Meshery without mesh sync connected. It is a degraded state for much of the functionality, not for the functionality that they're concerned with. So this, I think we need to get a couple of things down on paper to make sure that but you guys are barking up the right tree from my perspective. So I just keep barking.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah, go only.
You know, too much good feedback, or too much feedback, but not what you're expecting.
Yeah, probably what we are expecting, to write down stuff instead of okay, anyways, yeah, sure, we will write it down, I guess.
No. That's not but that's like, hey, it's entirely appropriate to just surface it briefly. Is it worth writing down and spending that time? Yeah, totally, it really is. You guys are striking on a very important. It would be. I mean, one thing that would be really helpful is, I don't know if everyone on the call is aware, but mesh sync, the information that Meshery discovers about Kubernetes and all of the things going on in Kubernetes, mesh sync facilitates that discovery and retrieves that data, pushes it into Meshery server, so that Meshery server can do intelligent things based on that. Sometimes that synchronization gets out of sync, or mesh sync gets out of sync, and there might be circumstances in which you need to wipe that database clean and kind of resync it, like initiate a resync. Does the user have control over that? Well, no, not yet. So that's part of that proposal, I would expect. So it's good.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so I'll move on to the next topic then, which is, like it's regarding the same thing that we discussed right now, since we are actually not sure, like the thing that we are showing in the status over here, it's not actually connected. I mean, it's not actually checking whether meshing is working, and I mean, the data is flowing through meshing or not. It's just checking the operator, whether the operator has deployed successfully, and if the status of the operator is fine. So I was thinking we should actually rethink about this thing, that only when the meshing is totally healthy, we should actually show it as a connected thing. Otherwise, it does not make any sense, because if it is not up, I mean, if it is not doing its job properly, then I don't think it's good to assume that it's connected and it's healthy, right? So that's actually a part of the same thing that we were discussing in the first place. I guess we'll think about it in the. I mean, those two things will get combined into one thing, and yeah, we'll try to see how to go about implementing that. So
very briefly on the second point that you were making, yeah, I think that's true, and it's actually something good to reinforce for all of us that are here, is that Meshery operator is quite important. It is important because it is carrying and feeding mesh sync. So to Nitish's point, like, I don't think that there's necessarily any, well, from my perspective, my vote would be that there's no additional discussion needed about changing, about what Nitish just said, is like the gating criteria for whether or not someone should be allowed to move to the third step in the connectivity wizard, in the connection wizard. Nitish, I think that is a great proposal, that while Meshery operator might be healthy, that's great, but what really matters is mesh sync connected, and that's probably what your proposal sounds good.
yeah, so moving on to the next one, actually, this connection wizard is actually, it has been released in the last Meshery version. I mean, it's released in last week itself, and if people doesn't know about this, it's already there. If you go to your like if you have the edge version running, and then if you go to the system connections, you would actually see this thing and you'll be able to experiment with it. So basically, we actually need a lot of people to open this and try this thing out and see how we can improve this thing, and how we can go about there are a lot of scope in this area. That's what I think, because when you think about it, like this could potentially be a point where you can where it can, like diagnose the whole machinery, diagnose all the problems that a person is facing while deploying Meshery components and stuff. So if like if people are interested, and I urge you guys to I install it and see, and go through each and every step, and whatever feedback you have, just that would be very helpful in improvising this whole component, this new step that we are taking towards. So yeah, right now we see that this UI is not up to the mark, and the reason for that is because there's not a lot of people working on this thing. And if we can get together and discuss this thing, and come up with some new ideas, and there are definitely a lot of ideas that we can come up with to display it more elegantly than what it is right now. So it would be great if people take a step, come together and mm, propose new ideas or whatever, so that we can make this thing uh, beautiful or something. Yeah. So according to the functionality wise, I don't think like it is in the basic stage right now. Like it's in the first step, I would say. We can go, will in the future, like we might have some other functionalities as well. We might change something here and there, but then we will have to come up with the fine-tuned UI that we are going to stick with some, at least for some time, right? So it would be great if you guys can run this thing and see, give the feedback on how it is working, whether it is working on some environment and it is not working on some other environment, so we can actually debug it and get it working. Yeah, that is what I wanted to share. Yep. So yeah, that's it from my side. I'll stop sharing and let others share their progress on what they have been developing. Yeah.
Thank you, Nidesh. Barik, would you like to continue from here?
Yeah, sure. Give me one. So about the progress on subscription for performance subscription. So actually, I met some roadblocks during the few days ago. So it is mostly about. So the question is all about like how do you publish a message from the handlers so that the subscription know that a new performance result is uh, is there already, basically. So this is what I'm looking for, and and initially what I thought is I could just create a new kind of resolver for mutation, but then I thought that there is too much. There is too much, and I can just I can just put the publish message onto the handlers itself. But then the issue here is that the there is a cyclic loop import that is happening if I just import the library directly onto the handlers package. So I talked about this with Dhruv before, and yeah, I think we are, yeah. So basically, we are still in the discussion.
So a brief discussion on what Barik said over here was how do a subscription basically know that, hey, data is updated, go give the UI a new data. And to do that, he was talking about how if something happens in one particular handler, how will a resolver know whether it is happening or not. So basically, for people who don't know in general, we use channels to communicate whether something is happening or not happening, so that the subscription know that, hey, something new has happened and the UI needs to change, so it sends the new data. So that was what Parikh was talking about. And I said this because if someone is interested, they can look into this new design spec which we have, from moving to channels to a more broadcast way where you can have multiple listeners. Basically, if multiple subscriptions have the same trigger, that let's say if you if a performance test is successful, let's say, then there are 5 things in your current UI that needs to be updated. Let's say one is the count of total number of tests, and second would be the test profile itself, that a new test profile is now created or something like that. So in that case, they both would listen to the same channel, and for that we need to support multiple channels. So if someone is interested, they can look into that too. Okay, so
A quick
that
clarification. So Barak, the shift to subscription for performance test results, that is not dependent upon a change from independent channels to broadcasts, correct?
Yep, yep. It's not independent. It's not
Good.
dependent.
Good. It is independent. Good.
Yeah.
Is that done then?
Still haven't.
Okay. All right. Is the
so
is that a known quantity or things that you're still trying to figure out?
So I will
Yeah.
partly take the blame over here. I responded today to the issues that Parikh had, and we cleared out basically the way how handlers and resolvers would communicate with each other to know like when to update the sub. We had a issue over there, and we resolved it. So now he would be able to go through it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
this is the Golang problem. I'm not really familiar with it.
Cool. Okay. But yeah, that's a good update from both of you guys. Barak, there's while you're in there, there's one other thing. I don't know if does anybody have Meshery UI up at the moment? Like we could pull up a performance test. So for all of you who've run a performance test, if you've had, there's an open issue on this, and it's probably I think we've opened it a few times. It's like a really old request, and it's fairly straightforward. It is, and Barak, this has to deal in part with your focus on mesh sync data and writing resolvers to take advantage of that data. If you create a new performance test, you'll get a form. It'll ask you a couple of things. One of the things it'll ask you is for the URL, the endpoint, what endpoint is it that you would like to generate load against? And you can type, it's a free form field, so you can type in whatever URL you want. And that's great. We want for people to type in anything they want, essentially. Not everything would be supported, but you know, and there is form validation and things, but there's something significantly missing here that's right at our fingertips. There's a lot of data inside of the Mesh Sync database, the Meshery server database that's populated by Mesh Sync. One of those pieces of data is any number of services that are running on Kubernetes or on a service mesh. And so this component can be pre-populated with the list of discovered endpoints. While at the same time, we can also let someone type in whatever they want, but they can also choose from a pre-populated list. The ideal here is that in the service mesh dropdown, so conceptually, if someone fills in a profile name, which they don't have to, it'll auto-generate. If someone is running a service mesh, that is discovered and denoted, this dropdown is rearranged. And based on what service mesh they will have chosen, there's a certain subset of discovered services that can be populated. Barak, does that use case make sense to you?
Yeah, that can be done.
Nice. One thing I can't tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've described that over the last, but there's one thing that is yet to be done. And that is that, like yesterday, we were demoing Meshery to a collection of service mesh users. And on the system that we were using, there were 3 different types of service meshes provisioned. And you could tell because, for a couple of reasons you could tell, but one reason is because when you click the drop down for service mesh, it would show you the 3 that were provisioned, and it'll draw a line underneath saying these are provisioned and these haven't been. And that's great. But when you first loaded the form, it would still be an empty drop down. It'll still show you empty. The ideal here is that, like, most of the time people are only going to be running one service mesh. So if there's a mesh that's been discovered and is being denoted, then let's just auto select that mesh to help speed along the process. If multiple are running, fine, just select one of them in alphabetical order or whatever, and let's help the user progress, if we could.
Sure. All right.
Nice, awesome, nice.
Do you want to talk about performance calendar?
Actually, that's both of these people have made some UI changes to the performance calendar. So, yeah, if Aditya or
Yeah, I'm on the call. I can share my screen.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So yeah, so this is what I've done. Like first, the calendar was inside this card, so I've just put it outside and made a card of its own. Yeah, that's it actually. So one thing that I forgot to do is, like, the card is a little outside, like the width of the card is a little bigger than this. So maybe we could change that so that it's aligned. Wait, am I audible?
Yes.
yeah, you are.
Oh, happen to
So,
happen.
have you tried it for every dimensions? Is it not acting weird or something?
Yeah, the only thing that is weird is if I close this, this is what is happening. Everything else is fine.
And you were also asking about the navigator thing, that is.
Oh yeah, yeah. So let me just. So the navigator here. Okay, wait. To refresh.
We can't see your latest screen.
Is my screen not visible?
Is
Uh, it's visible, but is it active screen like you have been on Meshery like pull request?
No, so that we are able to see screen. Maybe your internet is slow.
Yeah. So this is the problem that's happening. The chips are getting overlapped, and even no. Okay, this is not happening on. So on Safari, what's happening is even the text here is getting overlapped, but on Chrome, only the chips are getting overlapped. So we need to.
So is it only me that who cannot see the screen, or
I think so. I am
everybody
able to
else
see it properly.
Okay, cool.
Oh, sorry. Like, I'm blaming him, so sorry. Like, I really could not. It's just freeze.
Wait, so you still can't see my screen?
No, I could only see the PR that you are on to. Like,
Okay, I'll send you a screenshot.
Okay, maybe since Abhi since it's important for Abhi to see this now, do you mind just stopping sharing and restarting real quick?
Yeah, I'll reshare my screen.
That
Can you
way,
see?
everybody.
yeah, now I can see.
Yeah. So this is what's happening, and this is on Chrome. And as if I have my Safari, yeah, I have my Safari running too.
Yeah, so is there any problem with the navigator menu since there was a Slack message from yeah this issue is like I haven't seen it earlier, but yeah, it's an issue like the overlapping of chips, right? The
Yeah,
operator
and
and
the
machine.
text, and this is coming out of the card.
So I don't think it is
Yeah, no, no, I know
this
you
is
told me that it might be like when the navigator is closed, it looks okay. So that's something to think about.
so there is no problem with navigator right now, right?
Oh, that's what I got confused with. You said the navigate. So there is no problem with the navigator. The problem
Yeah,
is with this page.
actually you I don't know, I actually don't remember like you was the person,
No, it
but
was my screen.
uh,
It was my screenshot. Actually, I cut out the navigator, so it might have been. I cropped it out, so that's why you might have thought something was.
I was like really panicking, like what happened to this?
Yeah,
Because
there were
the
10.
last change was made by me on Navigator. So I was like, what has been into this? This is really weird to see. So yeah, this is something that I'm seeing for now, and yeah, we can make this. Like I haven't made any changes to this operator thing, but still we can do collectively.
Yeah, so Aditya, like if you would, can you create issues regarding this thing?
Yeah, sure. I'll
Yeah.
do it after the meeting.
Also, Aditya, can you go to performance page once?
Performance page. Yep.
Yeah. So one of the issues that we noticed here was that because now the calendar is a different card,
Yeah.
as soon as you add graphs, basically you add Grafana boards. This the card on the right top side with right now, which it says is no service mesh metrics
Yeah. So
configuration
this
is found.
extends. Yeah.
Yeah, and the calendar just comes at the bottom. So that's sort of an issue. I'm not sure.
So yeah. So it's not a like this card is not of a fixed height. So I'm pretty sure if it extends, the calendar would just go down. But that's
that's what I'm pointing out, that the calendar is going out of the view as soon as the boards are coming in.
Oh yeah, it would go out of the view. Like it would. Yeah.
And one more thing, like just a nitpick, that if we are seeing card where there are run test and manage profiles, like it's very less information that is imposed on two separate cards. So this can be like made in one card with divider, vertical divider, that would look much sleek, because yeah, there is some card over card, and that's
Yeah. We could do that. We could do that.
yeah.
Just to clarify, I think the priority one should be about the matrix thing, because most of the people who might use Meshery would have Grafana connected. So that might be a more urgent issue than connecting those things. Just clarify that.
So what would I have to do? Like what needs to be changed? So this would extend, and the calendar would go out of view. So what do we do for that?
Yeah, potentially change the. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little bit of a head scratcher. In part because loss of the view of the calendar. Well, one, it means that. Yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher because, well, you end up with a ton of wasted landscape, underneath the left-hand column. So one thing that could be done is that the calendar is rearranged to like a week or a day, and is shown just is shown consolidated in the left-hand column, underneath the results and the profiles. That way we can guarantee that people can actually still see what's going on, and also see the fact that there's a calendar. Okay, but what if the user had selected month as like that's what they want to see? Okay, well, that can be okay. Like just by default though, when the page were to load, that it would set it to a day. If it's being squished, that it would set it to a day, and that would be the default, behavior. If they overrode it, then great, we can persist that setting for their session, or we can and that's one potential approach. But ultimately, also eventually, we'll want to allow people to drag and drop, to rearrange the order of these. or to expand one to like in the upper right hand corner of the calendar is to like have a maximize button. You know, it's stuff like that. Like that's some of that is like cheating. It's the cheat way to get to the answer, which is, I don't know, just give the user the tool and let them, you know, try to do your best, but then give them the tool. And so to Abhi's point, by the way, hopefully everyone on the call, especially those that are relatively fresh or those that are already making an impact like Meghana is, but still, you know, relatively new to the community. If you can't tell, there's a ton of things to do. And most of the time the suggestions are warmly received. Like, it's like, yeah, we should do those things. Like anyone is welcome to call this baby ugly. It's okay, we want it to be better. So the card on card type thing that Abhi was just calling out is, it's like, you know, nails on the chalkboard. It's like, yeah, well, why? Yeah, there is a distinction between test results and performance profiles. And so, but we don't need to overly distinctify by, you know, anyway, stacking cards on card. The other thing too is like, well, it would be great if someone did an assessment to look across the other pages, you know, to use material UI nomenclature or vernacular, that there's paper and there are cards. And maybe the distinction is that a card is just paper except rounded on the corner with a shadow. Point is, I don't know that we're being consistent with our use of paper and cards and what's being elevated and what's not. And not everything needs to be on a card. Now, if we're going to let people drag and drop, rearrange some stuff, okay, maybe it's better that it's not just on paper, that it's on a card.
But this is a paper, it's not a card. I just said card, but it's on a paper.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so just in a set, someone to do a review across them and look. Yeah, I think in general, there are some common features that we would like to be able to empower people with, that is the ability to ultimately start to have some preferences on what it is that they would like to see. Some people, the nice thing about a calendar is, one, Meshery, underneath the covers, it has the ability to allow people to define schedules. There are APIs that define schedules, or that allow us to define schedules already. There's nowhere in the UI that we're allowing people to have a plus sign and like double click on the calendar and create a schedule, a recurring performance test. What an awesome capability that is, that you won't necessarily find in some other tools. That would be great. We already have the capability. We're not exposing in the UI. There's a lot of UX that needs to go on. So if all of you haven't checked out the Figma design files for this project, please do. It is in much need of love. So if you have some extra love and you have any amount of UX talent, yeah, anyway, so I wanted to call that out and say, like, more than what Abhi had said about the cards being stacked, and a proposal about, you know, a simple slender divider, is that it's granted people are on the page in context of performance. That's the menu item that they clicked on. That's the title of the page. Good. Performance results. Okay, those must be test results. Yeah, because it says run test, but yeah, okay. Profiles. Okay, it must be performance profiles, because there's probably a little bit of lack of, there's some additional context that we might provide the user. And I also wonder if, I don't know if all of you would think about this a little bit. I'm curious as to what your opinion is as to whether or not those two papers, those two cards were swapped. If profiles came first and results came second, like in the system design, if you're going to use Meshery a lot, you want to just, can you click on profile, manage profiles? That, you know, if you will end up using profiles because it's a lot easier to work with. There's some thoughts that need to go on here, because you've got to, well, I guess actually, if you click on the performance, so right now you're on profiles, right? But we're not showing that in the menu.
No.
Just, you know, that's too bad. Ideally, we should be making sure that the drawer follows
It
us.
shows now, but like if I go from here, it doesn't.
Another thing to think about is like, see how we have the grid view in the upper right-hand corner and the table view? It's not obvious to a lot of folks that that's actually a thing and is available to them. And the fact that they actually get a lot more data when they go to table view like that, or there's some things. So.
And yeah, and one more thing, like if you are seeing these cards especially, so a lot of space has been wasted, right? So I think we can use that space to make it more compact, yet more clear to our eyes, because a lot of space has been wasted, like after Aditya 4 results, total space that has been wasted. We can just view result, test result can be uplifted a bit above, and this information can be on new line like last run, but still that would be much shorter information, and we could actually show three cards, or more than two cards at the same time with extra information on the dashboard itself.
Who's next?
Yeah, Aditya, like the next item, like Afsal has reported a bug. I mean, trying to reproduce a bug. So if you could test that out quickly and see if it is a bug. It's a uh,
What's the bug?
so the bug basically is that the notifications are not falling into correct filters. So yeah, if you could test that out asynchronously as we move on to the next topic, and reach out to Afsal, then it would be great. Yeah, Nidesh, back to you. You missed a topic.
Yeah, I just want to give this update that right now we have pre-commit hook installed with our UI. So whenever you know try to commit, I mean, first you have to run npm install so that the hook can be configured with your .git directory. So after that, if you guys like, if you want to commit, then it would actually run the lint command, npm run lint command, and it would check the formatting for it. And yeah, I just wanted to give this update that this is actually a thing right now. And you guys before, before doing any development, you guys have to run npm run install. Yeah. This is only for Meshery UI right now, to be clear. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Nidesh. Abhishek, will you be able to talk about the RJSF forms in Meshery patterns? Or I
Yeah,
think yeah. Okay.
actually last night I was on call with Utkarsh, and we just discussed how to populate all the things that I was not able to populate earlier, and he managed to tell me what was the problem, and actually it was the host problem that was not establishing the connection between our Meshery server and the adapter itself. So that thing has been done, and I'm now integrating those things in the UI itself. So that work is yet not completed. So yeah, once that will be done, I will ping you.
Right. That sounds good. Okay, you opened up this PR and it's still in draft. Okay, cool. Would you like to talk about the Navigator menu right now? Like,
Yeah, so actually I was not sure about what's the requirement for the navigation menu for now. Like is there something like there should be an accordion type thing in the collapsed view also? Like that was something that I just read on Slack, so that was something to be done.
Right. Yeah.
can some, yeah.
Yeah. And the navigator menu being Avi, let me, let me catch up with you, or let me catch you in Slack or something, so we don't.
Okay. Great.
All right. I believe Meghna is on the call. Meghna, would you like to show the import by URL?
Yes. So
Yeah.
I actually can't show it live right now. I'm outside and I'm on my phone. So, but I have updated my GitHub issue. There I've shared the screenshots of how it looks right now. So if you could go to the issue assigned to me, so you'll be able to see. Meghna 12. Yeah. Meghna -12. Sorry. ANA.
This is correct, right?
You are searching in pull
Yeah,
requests.
but you're
You should
searching
go to
PR. Yeah, that one. So yeah, right now I've added a button there and a model. That's it. So I actually wanted to know what else I need to add there.
Comments on this?
The only thing which I could think of is a URL invalidator, but I'm assuming, is it there? No.
Pardon? Could you repeat what you just said?
Basically, regex to validate whether the URL entered was indeed a URL.
Oh no, I didn't add that. There was something about the github.com needed some other setting. I don't know. We discussed something on that call, but again, Lee mentioned that for the first version, it's not required. So I didn't do anything else. I just showed the current look. So I'll add that. It won't be a problem. I'll add that. Is there anything else?
I think that's about it. I think it's just a change, maybe of verbs instead of.
Yeah, Lee?
Yeah, maybe import is the keyword.
Okay, sure. I'll change that.
And then, yeah, other than that, I think you're hitting it on the head that GitHub, if the URL is at github.com, that will be a special use case, but to your exact recollection, that's a step 2, or it's enough that just to allow anyone to import from an HTTP URL. And so, yeah, I guess after they're done importing, you'd probably send a notification to the UI just to confirm that. And if
toaster kind of a thing that it's uploaded, or
yeah, which I don't know. At some point, those might get annoying, but anyway, yes, that also that hopefully they wouldn't have to refresh the screen. They would they would see a third or a fourth, row in the table.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. And is a backend? I didn't connect the backend yet. Connected to the backend basically. So is it the same one that is being used for the upload one, like the file upload?
Yeah.
API.
Yeah.
It's the same one.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to know that.
Utkarsh, this is the filters API. So when a new filter is being imported, is it the endpoint that's already has some smarts about identifying whether or not it was a URL at github.com versus?
Yeah, actually endpoint will figure out. The request differs. If you want to import from a URL, then the object that you're sending would appear a bit different. But the endpoint doesn't. Basically, endpoint covers the thing that should it do special stuff for GitHub.com, or should it just do simple HTTP request for importing raw content? So that's something that the endpoint would cover, but you will definitely have to specify that, hey, import using the URL, or just take in this particular file name. So I'll actually point out a document where this stuff is documented.
Oh yeah, sure, that'll be great. That's what I wanted to know. Is there anything else you want me to add? Any other changes?
No, I don't think so.
So is it just me, or if we don't have a radius in the box, and it's a bit annoying, or it's just me? I don't know, small changes.
I didn't get I'm sorry.
So can you? Okay, so I don't think the paper should have a bit of curve, right? If I'm not wrong.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I can add that. No problem. So right now is a regex checking, and then I need to change upload to import, and then the curve of the card, and the other document that Utkarsh will be sharing, I think, if I got the name right.
Yep, sounds good, Meghna.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
thank you for sharing this.
Thank you.
Going over to Rudraksh, that should you talk about the concerns in the SMI conformance section?
Yeah, I'll quickly share my screen to show you guys some stuff. So there were outside bugs in Meshery CTL which were kind of blocking the action and which were kind of so they were not exactly blockers, but affecting how the action works. This PR tracks them. It removes spinner because spinners cause wild logs in CI, something like this. And I'm not really sure if that's the desired behavior. That's what the Windows pointed out. I wasn't able to reproduce this, so I'm not sure if this has been fixed, and this has been fixed in this year. So yeah, some of the fixes in this are up. And other than this, the SMI conformance tests are failing because the service fails to get a load balancer up or something. I'm not really sure, but yeah, so I'd like to know that from Dhruv that if there's a fix for that or we need to do that.
Yeah, so about this, I wasn't really sure how to do it, but Abhishek just tweeted and just commented on a Slack, and I think there is a way to do it, but uh, is basically manipulating the SMI tool in a way that it won't then send a gRPC request for a test, and it will invoke the test automatically when it's deployed. We can do that. Should we do that? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess the problem here is that this leads to the tool not working with different kinds of environments, like in Minikube, and I guess in Kind as well, you don't have load balancers. There's something not put, and either the tool should figure it out or whatever we are using for deploying stuff. So, or we may get rid of this. Yeah.
I'm just a bit hesitant about it because then we would have to change each and every adapter to those specific changes, and I, mm, I'm thinking of one other clever way might be to just check when the load adapter is up instead of a timeout of 60 seconds and then try to connect. But that
But
might be a better way to go to it. I don't know.
it'll never connect in these environments like that load balancer. It'll stay pending for IP address perpetually. There's no use for the SMI for Learn Layer 5 for that SMI conformance test other than running the test for the mesh from which it was provisioned, adding the, and so like, why does it need to why does it need to be told after it's deployed to actually do the thing that it was deployed to do? I don't, there's a logical argument against that. The change and update inside of each adapter should be nothing more than the name of the adapter. Like the adapter knows what it is. It's an adapter for a specific mesh. It should just pass along its mesh name. So I mean, we're looking at like, you know, 1-liner, 5-liner, something very.
Okay, I think if everyone is for that, we can go ahead in that direction.
But think about it. I mean, but it, you know, like let it soak in. There maybe there's, if your intuition is saying there might be.
So, like the problem is with Minikube, right? So if you run Minikube tunnel, it won't show pending and it will give you extra. Like
No, it's happening with multiple environments. We tested Minikube, we tested Kind, and I believe we also tested Docker Desktop. So,
And so the real issue,
yeah,
that's just the SINT. I mean, like the real issue is in Meshkit and understanding how. Well, it's not necessarily Meshkit. It's the fact that we've got hard-coded load balancer as the network type for that particular application for SMI conformance, which in some environments will work and in others won't. And having a more intelligent system is using something like, well, functionality stemming from Meshkit, but flowing into the adapter to more intelligently understand like how that particular service should be exposed. If you circumvent the need for it to be exposed by telling it to just run the test for which it was deployed, then anyway, since we're out of time, let's talk about this on Slack or somewhere else.
yep. And just the last thing was that OSM version hard coding, like this is a high priority issue. I was really not sure who's going to work on it, but seems like I'll take it up and fix it. Cool.
Thank you, Rudraksh. Since we are out of time, I'd like to thank everyone for joining. But I think we will go for a couple of minutes more to discuss some of these other items on the meeting minutes. So if you have other, if you have to be somewhere else, feel free to jump off the call. All right, Husseina, would you like to talk about your recent PR?
Yeah, actually, this issue is with the bash installer. So on some operating systems, unzip command is not present. So we are basically packaging Meshery CTL and README and license together into a zip package, and this script would fail on systems which does not have unzip command installed by default. So we are planning to change the flow to package only Meshery CTL, and then there won't be a need to unzip the package, and you can just move the command and start executing it. So I made some changes in Go releaser file. If you can open that. So I needed some help with how to test this. So I've reached out to Rudraksh, and Navendu has also given some comments on this. So if this particular change works, I'll also make the bash installer script changes as well to remove any references to unzip command or the meshery.zip file. So
this is great. It's good. I don't envision that we'll need to bundle any additional artifacts in the CTL or along with the CTL. Today we don't have that use case. We're bundling in a README and whatever else that doesn't need to be there. Any change like this we need to test it from a few different angles. This does make it simpler to install, which in some respects makes our sustaining workload even easier. If there are some sample filters or sample apps or sample patterns that we do and will ship with bundle into Meshery's packaging, today that bundling is built into the image, the Docker container image for Meshery server, or into the images of each Meshery adapter. And so even as we go to expand that and bundle in additional things in the future, it doesn't seem to be the need for a zipped package here. So I'm just kind of reinforcing that I don't foresee the need for a zip file. I'm trying to play the devil's advocate and I'm losing against myself. So it seems like the right thing to do. Seems like it reduces sustaining overload or overhead, and it just seems like something that we need to make sure that we test, well on the different OSs.
yes, actually, while going through the Go releaser code also, there are so many things OS specific and whether to skip this for a particular platform or not, just because some format doesn't exist on a platform. All those conditions are there. So I think if we just go with a single file, even the Go releaser code and dependent workflow related files also will be much simpler, I guess.
Yep, we can test this out on multiple systems, and I think we are good to go here, if the test pass and after we update the bash script.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Hussein. All right, Aditi, are you on the call? Okay, no. Okay, so Aditi has a proposal to use cached manifests in Meshery CTL for deploying. So this could be a first step to possibly make Meshery be able to deploy it in a air-gapped environment. So she has made a proposal for this, and I think she'll be working on it. So some comments on this, feel free to talk to Aditi about it. All right, Piyush, could you give us an update and on the code coverage as well as the API docs status?
Yeah, sure. Just a second. So the code coverage, let's talk about code coverage. So the current code coverage is 23.22% with the increase of 1.6% from last week. And this was all possible because of these three people: Ashish Tiwari, Suhani Agarwal, and Sayantan Bose. These three guys made some big and important PRs that actually kind of raised the bars here. Okay, so I'll just make you show you the current code coverage, that is 23.22%, 23.22%, and it's from Meshery CTL folder. Okay, and if anyone of you guys are interested in writing unit tests, we have a lot of issues open. Let me just walk through that. If you go here and type tests, you can see more like 5 issues where you can work. And if you are like interested in working in any of these issues, you can either contact me for some help, or can go through this talk, which kind of include all of basic info on how to start with writing unit tests for Meshery CTL. Okay, and if you want to check on what are the like commands we have already covered or not, you can go to this sheet that is Meshery CTL command tracker. We have a column here, maybe, yeah, test written. We have marked yes, which we have already covered. The gray part need to be covered. So if you are interested in any of these things, just write what should I say, a comment in any of the mentioned threads. We will assign it to you and you can get started with it. Okay, let's move on to the REST doc status. We actually have covered mostly all of it. The only let me go through the file. We recently covered applications, and the rest we have to cover is only filter endpoints, and then this whole part of OpenAPI specification documentation will be finished. That's really good news. So that's the status about OpenAPI docs. Sayantan is working on this, so as soon as he will finish, this will be covered. The whole file will be covered.
Whoa. All right. Well, at least the REST API is being well taken care of. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I can't tell if Drew is smiling. Okay, good. All right, good. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Piyush, that's like, we had zero documentation of the REST API. We have all kinds of people trying to use it. That's great. That's great.
Dhruv, do you have an update on the GraphQL API?
So for GraphQL API, like, not really, to be honest. I will be fixing
That's okay. Maybe
current one which are there. I have assigned few of them to Nitish too, along with Parikh. So we are constantly working on them.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you, Pierce. Thank you, Dhruv. Before we wind up, anyone else has something that they need to talk about?
I know we're out of time, and so maybe this is actually a really good topic for the community call on Friday. Suhani and why is the other name? And a partner in crime.
I think Devansh.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, they have been doing work. I've been advancing on the interactive labs, and they've been learning stuff. Suhani, it might be good to have that as a topic on the community call on Friday for you to kind of you did a great job last time of telling people what they're about, inviting people to participate, and Devansh is there, so that's good. But I don't know that you've gotten a lot of feedback on what's working, what's not working. So just getting some more airtime on the community call and highlighting the fact that those resources are there, I think is helpful because, you know, none of us know service mesh as well as we could. So walking through those labs is really helpful. And they're underutilized is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, and
I will let you know. Yeah.
sounds good. All right, everybody. Thank you for staying this long. I guess we will see you next time. Bye.
Yeah. So, like before going, if in SMI tool, like Utkarsh helped me point this out, but if the adapters are outside the cluster, how will you get the result from the SMI tool if you don't have a load balancer?
Yeah.
If you don't have a gRPC connection, which is through the load balancer. So if there isn't an external IP, you won't get the result if Meshy adapters are outside. Or you, yeah.
That's good. Yeah, it's something to, is there a diagram of the thing? Doesn't have to be much. But, does it need to be bidirectional?
Yeah, so it is currently bidirectional. The adapter is a client, but client sends a request for the with the specifications of each of the tests, and it gets the result back from the GL.
Yep. And it is good. That's good justification for not shifting, you know, for continuing to need the, you know, service exposed externally. And if it continues to need to, like while there are ways to circumvent that or to work on that, like it's probably not, it's not worth the effort to change that. And the suggestion to auto, I think that, you know, the symptom that we were addressing is like how to make sure that it's exposed correctly, which is, I'm sorry, we were addressing the symptom of not having it auto-initiate the tests. The root cause is like because the service isn't being exposed, and so working on that probably, you know, can be helpful to other things that we're doing, maybe. So occasionally, because eventually it's not too far in the future. As a matter of fact, I'd like to put this up for grabs now, but we won't. It is, Dhruv can tell everyone about dynamic boards and static boards, the two constructs inside of Meshery that Meshery will query a node exporter, a Prometheus node exporter for metrics about the nodes. But if it's not there, then if there isn't a Prometheus node exporter there, then Meshery can't get that data. And Meshery can't get that data, well, some of the performance test reports are really lacking a lot of context. Okay, so then maybe Meshery should auto-deploy a Prometheus if one isn't present and connect to it and then automatically start showing people a bunch of nice graphs in the chart. Okay, so if Meshery is going to provision a Prometheus outside of the Prometheus and Grafana's that come with your service mesh, then it too would have an open need for exposing a service external to the cluster. So that logic, you know, centrally is located in Meshkit is.
You want to use Grafana to get the result as a middleware?
Well, no, is for Meshery server to deploy its own instance of Prometheus and its own instance of Grafana. Because the instances that come with the service meshes aren't inclusive of all the info needed. And if Meshery is going to do that, it needs to expose Prometheus external to the cluster. And so then that same logic that we would use to figure out, should it be a load balancer, node port, or cluster IP, same logic can be used to make sure that SMI conformance is provisioned.
So about the load balancer, if I remember correctly, we changed it from node port to load balancer because Minikube wasn't working properly with node balance. I don't remember. So I remember having the talk with Abhishek of doing such, but that was the case. I don't know the problem at that time, but yeah, just the F5. I don't know. with that. Something.
It's one of those things we have to just dynamically discern, because the way that each of those distros behave keeps changing. And so like Docker Desktop, they keep upgrading it and making it a tighter integration, breaking some things, enabling others. Same for Minikube, apparently. Okay. So it's statically defined in a manifest that it will be a load balancer. Different ways to handle that, like either check the environment before, like in Meshkit though, is where this needs, or in the adapter library, either one, it needs to be defined in there, some logic that says to check the environment, our load balancer is working, or is node port the right thing, or whatever the approach is. But it has to dynamically check. And there is some of that already in Meshkit where it will verify connectivity. There's some amount of intelligence there that can be built upon. Cool, that's all for me.
Okay, bye-bye, people.
Yeah.